Hi, my name's Lena Nicodemus. I'm 32 years old and I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, California. I grew up actually in Maryland, like outside of Baltimore, Maryland. I was fortunate that I grew up in a family where I had enough food and I had shelter, but there was definitely a lot of abuse in my home. I think who I am right now is pretty close to how I was when I was a kid. Pretty spunky, but also introverted, a big nerd, really love animals. So my BPD story is kind of a long one. I was hospitalized when I was 20 years old. The psychiatrist, after meeting me for about 5 minutes, was like, "You have BPD." That being my first exposure to it, I didn't take to that very kindly, and I said, "What the hell do you know?" I sort of went on with my life just thinking, "Oh, I don't have BPD. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He didn't know me." And I still stand by the fact that he didn't appropriately assess or deliver that diagnosis. And I, 10 years later, remember going to my therapist at the time and saying, "Oh, I think I have BPD." And she was like, "Yeah." How it was at its worst. I was partying a lot, was moving from relationship to relationship, put myself in all sorts of dangerous situations. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was doing anything I could to get out of my body. I had no handle on my emotions, was on the verge of killing myself most of the time. I didn't realize that life didn't have to be that way. Weirdly, at the time I thought I was having fun. I thought that was fun. And my life now is completely different. I got into a healthy relationship. We're actually talking about like big plans for the future, which I never thought that would be something in my plans at all. I never had plans for the future. I just was almost not trying to be here so much that I was like chained to the now, but not in a pleasant way, because I was chained to the now in the way that I was experiencing my suffering constantly. And in terms of fun ways, like I have a lot more fun now, like genuine fun, not like, oh, it's so fun to go out and get completely trashed with strangers. Like, I do things that are like, it's kind of silly now, but fun. And I have a career that is really important to me. I decided after going through my own DBT therapy, I decided I wanted to become a DBT therapist. So now I'm in the process of getting certified and starting my own comprehensive DBT program. I think one of the things that I'm able to do now that I wasn't then is be able to be present and cope with conflict with loved ones without having that like immediate fear of like, oh my God, they're gonna leave me. I don't really have that anymore, which is kind of wild. So that's a big difference, I think. Yeah, like who am I outside of BPD? That's the cool thing too about recoveries. I've been able to really figure that out. I'm trilingual. One of my favorite things is learning languages. I really love true crime. I've picked up a real joy in just play. I've gotten back into video games, playing board games with my friends, learned how to roller skate. I'm still terrible, but I like to do it. Yeah, long-term life goals. I'm at the age where I'm thinking about starting a family. And I think having come from a really toxic family, I never thought that I would want to. So it's very different to be now as an adult to say, maybe that's going to be something that's part of my life. Definitely what I do for work, being able to really learn how to use my experience to help other people. A lot of things that are important to me that I want to see through. One tip for people who are really struggling, healing happens with connection. Healing happens in community. I wouldn't have been able to recover from my BPD if I didn't have a really special and connected relationship with my therapist, or if you're not able to access therapy, being able to make connections in your community. Like our community, I think the BPD community is wonderful. Wherever you're able to connect with people, there's a reason that you're here, and connecting with others might help you figure that out. You can get a lot of information about whether a therapist is a good fit for you in the initial consultation with them. You know, figuring out, asking them like, what is your experience with BPD? How do you know when someone is improving? What sort of tools do you use to measure progress and also assess diagnoses? You know, asking questions like, what sort of things do you offer? How do you teach skills? As people who really struggle with intense emotions or intense anger or what have you, like, I need somebody who's gonna, at some times, hold my hand, like, and walk me through moments where I don't know what to do other than to freak out, right? That's another big thing that separates DBT from other practices or DBT informed is the phone coaching aspect. Being able to call your therapist and say, like, I'm literally about to kill myself, and have them walk you through that moment rather than admitting you to a hospital. There's a lot of people who feel like, oh, we should just throw the diagnosis of BPD away because it's just complex trauma. BPD is a very complicated diagnosis, and I agree that the origins of the diagnosis, not super client-centered. It was very stigmatizing, absolutely. And that doesn't mean that there aren't those of us out there who really identify with having BPD, and accepting that diagnosis allowed us to access recovery. So I think when we think about diagnosis, we want to think about it as this color wheel where, you know, there's ways that diagnoses intersect and every person can experience them differently. Because at the end of the day, people also identify with what makes sense for them. I try to really honor the complexities of diagnosis as a practitioner, but I think that in all, you know, it's complicated. It's not just trauma for most of us. Any last things people should know about me? Well, I have a TikTok that you can follow, Your Human Therapist. I post a lot about BPD on there, you know, having it myself and working with people with BPD. And yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.